Hi, hello everyone. We have a fascinating topic here today, and it grew out of my own introspection when I left my hometown around the age of 28. I didn't know who I was really, and started asking myself questions. Those of you that know me know that I am of an Italian descent, and I started to ask myself some questions, like simple and big questions, even things like, do I have to eat pasta every Sunday? Can I be successful in my career? Can I heal my life and be happy when my family is hurting? So I remember starting to explore these questions among many others. And so I noticed, I thought I was doing really well. And then all of a sudden, I went home for the first time and I noticed, and I thought I was good and I was healed. So I realized I walked into the front door and it hit me like a ton of bricks. This family tension and this trance that we all are a part of in our own family systems. So, I'm wondering, have you ever noticed why you can't be yourself when you're around family members, or why you change when you're around family, or maybe you feel like you're becoming your mother or your dad? You might even find yourself regressing to childhood traits or behaviors by becoming quiet or argumentative, or maybe you feel dumb again. So, love them or hate them, family is blood, and you are them, and they are you. The family is, they are a powerful influencer of your life. And while some of the influences are really obvious, some of them are hidden and not realized. So, the echoes of our ancestors right here shape the family consciousness and drive our lives. And that's basically what we're going to talk about here today. So I'm Sanna Carapellotti. I'm an alchemist, a Hatha yoga instructor, and a HeartMath coach. Life-Changing Energy Therapies is my website. And I lead retreats. I do classes and work privately on a nationwide basis. So I do a lot of Skype calls. You can email me anytime with your questions from my website. So I welcome you to this Facebook Live, The Family Consciousness. So if I say something that is of interest to you or that raises your eyebrows, give me a thumbs up, and so that'll clue me into what's helpful to you. So a discussion of family consciousness is really a plunge into the family psyche. I'm going to offer you a general overview, and then because I've written like a 25-page report on this and have done a lot of research, and then I'm going to give you some suggestions on how you can help yourself. So first, let's talk briefly about the subconscious mind. Okay, your life and the life of your ancestors are integrated into the subconscious mind. Now, this integration includes how we take in life, the meaning we attach to events, the beliefs that we have, our habits and patterns, and even the health of our body is reflected in the subconscious mind and is also expressed through the body. But more specifically, okay, the subconscious mind also includes all of the family's successes and failures, difficulties, traumas, ordinary moments, kindness and hatred, well-being, all kinds of healthy and unhealthy love. So everything and anything that was reinforced or that had and still has a strong emotional association for you is integrated here, and it's not always logical. So essentially, how we live, how we interact with ourselves, with the self and others is driven by the subconscious mind. So think about it as a storehouse of your family and also your life. And it's also one thing that we never question and we never explore. Sometimes what we experience is never even articulated. We just have a felt sense, or we feel connected to events or people that we hold on to or strongly identify with. So where does this come from? So all of us are born into a pre-existing family consciousness, which can be referred to as a trance state or an emotional climate. So here, all of the past and current tensions set the the climactic consciousness. So your subconscious mind was imparted onto you in most cases. It's not malicious. It's not like consciously intentional, because there's two things that I really want you to know. Number one is that your parents were and are also programmed. Okay, number two is that many of us become parents expressing our unresolved personal, unresolved, like suppressed traumas along with those of the family. Now, I'm going to say something here that is really important to know and to keep a perspective on, but all children carry burdens of the family and family stresses. Okay, we are all conditioned also to be a part of the family, of this family consciousness, until something nudges us, until we have a certain awareness, and then all of a sudden we begin exploring and becoming introspective in terms of, who are we really? So within every family, there's a default way of interacting or being together. And as a child, you were conditioned to live within certain parameters and to play a certain role. So there's varying degrees of tension and flow and a mixture of all of that that can clue you in to hidden dynamics. The more traumatized a family, okay, the more you feel that something is off in the tension and how families interact. However, we can become, as children, we become so familiar to this family tensions because number one, we play a part in it that we don't even realize that it's there. I thought all fathers raged because my father had severe post-traumatic stress from war wounds and his experiences. So in some homes, you can feel the tension, you can cut it with a knife. In some, it's hidden behind smiles and appearances. And in some, there's genuine happiness, even though there have been struggles. And I also want you to remember that there is plenty of good in families, and it can be overshadowed by events that are unspeakable or are difficult to live with. So therefore they become denied or suppressed or ignored, to the point where even people are cut out of the family. It's like a bomb in the basement. Nobody talks about it, but there's an effort to contain or hide it. But trauma can't be contained. It either implodes or explodes energetically, and you will see it, or maybe you've experienced it. An example, and these are experiences from clients that I have worked with. An example is a grandfather who was killed in a mill accident, leaving grandmother with no income and 5 children. She was eventually institutionalized. So essentially, the kids lose both parents. My client, her mother was one of those kids. An uncle who drives drunk and kills a child. sexual abuse by a family member, absent parents, a mother who was depressed or mentally ill. Okay, someone who is highly successful or marries outside of the religion or culture. A baby died, even going back a couple generations. It's often that a woman will come in feeling depression and anxiety, has been to therapy for numerous years, but as we look at the family dynamic and what happened here, what is the bleed? That's what I refer it as. So we look at, well, right before grandmother was born, there was a child who died. So that impacts grandmother, that impacts her ability to be present, that can impact here. Now, it's not certainly 100%, but it is something to consider if a tragic death resides in the family. Also, mother-infant separation for any reason between the ages of 0 and between birth and around the age of 5. So you can see that sometimes events will not have occurred in your life, but yet you feel the symptoms of it, but the impact of trauma or struggles behind us is carried forward. So as children, we mirror and absorb the subconscious mind of our parents and also the immediate environment. We've all heard that saying that life is an illusion. Okay, so the impact of an event such as trauma or a distress can shake up a family foundation, causing families to cling in pain, and they therefore suffer together. So the question then becomes for a client who comes in who's depressed and has anxiety, which is most of my client base, very highly functional folks, can you be happy or be well in a traumatized family? Okay, the mind-body system will take on symptoms to self-protect, to help manage and cope the burdens that are being carried. So how these events are held in the family psyche is going to shape the consciousness of your parents, grandparents, and also your life and those of your kids. Now, Berthold Alzheimer, who from Germany, who was one of my teachers, I did trauma training with him a couple of years ago. He said that this really rung true for me, is that there's only a trauma if there are symptoms. And that's really important because I had a host of traumas growing up. And as I look back, they don't affect me in the way that they did anymore. So is it still a trauma? Was it a difficulty or a challenge? Absolutely. But it's not imprinted here in that way in my subconscious mind. So many families are symptomatic of trauma, and you can see that. But closer to home, there's in our lives as we grew up, there's a status quo of a directive that we mirror and we bond with, either with them or against them. But that's also a bond. See, your parents' reality becomes your reality. Your parents' emotional field becomes your emotional field. Even in the best of situations, there are undercurrents and expectations. You don't really feel it or see it until an awakening occurs. So you can witness symptoms of trauma in the family through when there's abuse, either through victimization or being a perpetrator. Addictions, a teen who is acting out is calling attention to the tensions in the family. Let's take a child who develops chronic illness because the parents are constantly fighting. The child is literally becoming ill, turning the parents' attention away from the conflict and towards them. So eating disorders, I mean, it's unlimited and very unique to each family what events are carried from behind that create the symptoms that the parents and you, and also within your family, in terms of how uh, trauma is expressed and also how you cope and live with it. So maybe you have a wound that you can't heal. You're depressed like mom. You dislike your parents. Secrets really hurt families. And that's often what happens in families when there's something that's too big to talk about, when the pain is too much, where it's overwhelming, it gets pushed aside. But I always create this image of, if I do this, I mean, there's still this kind of clinging vine that can become suffocating. So the event that occurred, you know, is generally not allowed, or it's not faced or dealt with, and there's maybe no support. Maybe it was something that was against society. For example, somebody was jailed or imprisoned, and then it becomes suppressed and internalized in the system. So the tension builds within each respective individual and the family, and it becomes very difficult to cope and manage, even to function in, in everyday life, as well as health can be affected. So each family member is going to express it in their own way. However, a tragic event can also inspire global change. For example, Mothers Against Drunk Driving. There's also certain qualities and traits, which we'll talk about in an upcoming live, such as determination, that can also allow an individual to rise up in the face of difficulties. Such, who comes to mind is Oprah. Okay, there can be an illusion or an appearance of doing well. Oftentimes, strength, it can also be a sign of containment, and that there is suppression. So these tensions move through the family and are stored in the family psyche. So there's also an expansive quality that occurs over time. For example, we often think about how there's an event that occurs, let's say grief. And so there's sadness and, tears and the missing that goes on, and we expect it to be over within a short period of time. But however, for kids, it can impact them socially, academically, their health. But as time goes on, it's not attributed back or associated back to an earlier trauma. So Bessel van der Kolk, who was a researcher of trauma, says that by the age of 35, most of us have had at least 3 to 4 traumas. See, and that's where I come in, where I find it and I shift it. That is the core of my work. Now I'm going to give you a little shocker here. So have you ever run into a family friend who tells you, now I'm not pigeonholing or anything, but this I've heard this many times. They might say, wow, your mother is really fascinating and she does so much for the community, and you're shaking your head. I'm wondering, she's talking about the same person that as mother? Well, because at home, her to be sulky, to be passive, to be a little cranky. But keep in mind, she's also affected by the family trance, just like you. So your siblings and your parents, you may not know them as other people know them, just like they don't know you. So these events shape us and how we live. However, you can change what you think about anything. Now, some of these thoughts have gone unquestioned, unevaluated, unknown, but they will continue to drive your life. There is a loyalty to them. The stories that we hear, the stories that we tell, and what we don't talk about can clue you in to where some of the more potent beliefs are. So in my work, it's not about the story. The key is, what is fact? what happened? What is the truth? Because I don't view families as dysfunctional. I actually eschew that word, because what I'm looking for is what happened back here to create these symptoms. Okay, number one, I'm going to give you a couple of suggestions so that you can start exploring this for yourself. So number one, this is so critical. You cannot fix, change, or rescue anyone except yourself. This I find across the board, where they want to change their parents, but this is the illusion of the child that is still operative. You may consider some healing work or find out what happened in the family that created this climate in which you live that kind of caused you to grow up faster. Because as an adult, the more you blame mother or your upbringing, the longer you stay wounded. Okay, as an adult, what you carry forward is now your responsibility. You have that power because you can heal anything as you begin to understand the dynamics, resolve it within yourself, and look out into the family with greater compassion and regard. So recognize that those regressions that occur whenever you go home or your parents call or a sibling, that's the wounded child. The wounded child, these regressions are the hallmark of a wounded family. Your parents and your siblings are also in that trance state, and any shift can threaten or benefit the family. But I think it's a good risk because this new normal can be unknown to you because it may feel unfamiliar or unknown to you. But see, that's where you get to create your life. Okay. Also, because you know this tension, it exists, you know that when your mom calls or when you go, there's always routines with this, okay? You can prepare yourself by deciding how you want to be when you visit, what you will engage in, how you will talk, how you respond when your mother talks about your hair or your career or the fact that you're not married. Have a very simple, packed response to it. Begin to question, well, what's truly of value to you? Do you still need to be heard? Do you still need to be seen or to please family members? Because if it hasn't gotten you the result you wanted up to this point, they may not have it to give you. Do not look to the family to build your self-worth or esteem. If it hasn't occurred yet, it's not happening. Okay, get to know yourself through inquiry, like I explained at the beginning of this live. Okay, what's important to you now? Does what you think, is that in sync with how you want to live as an adult? What are you carrying forward? There may be some things about the family that you want to embrace, but some things you can leave behind with them. You can explore like big things, little things. Just notice if your current thinking, your beliefs and behaviors are in sync or out of sync with who you are and what you're striving to become. So you want to update yourself, and I encourage all of my clients to do that. What you think matters, and those aren't always your thoughts that you, or beliefs that you formulated. In my upcoming guidebook, I have a whole section on the family trance and how to stay bonded and connecting with family without sacrificing who you are. So I hope that you have benefited from this larger perspective. Even if you opt out to not change a thing, you can become aware of this dynamic in the family. So remember that love and positivity can also shape a family, and that within every family, there's something. I find it. I can reframe any family situation, even if it begins in a small way, or the greatest gift that you have been given, which is life. Albert Einstein once said, Insanity is doing the same things over and over again and expecting different results. That also applies to us as we go home. So you may not know exactly how to handle your family, but doing something new and returning home with a kinder, more open-hearted approach might just create a little bit of family magic for you. Your family is your family, the only family for you. And perhaps one day you could even hold the most difficult person in your heart, even if that's the only way you connect. So I'm Sanna Carapellotti, Life-Changing Energy Therapies. If you want to dive more deeply into your family genogram, I offer non-therapeutic services to assist you, and also transformative change work. Thank you very much. Like this audio if it raised your awareness. I look forward to seeing all of you somewhere on the planet. Love.